Hi, everyone. People are here. People are still here. Thank you for your attention. Again, showing up in mind, body, and spirit. This next one is going to be amazing, if not only because they're wearing headsets as if they are 1990s pop stars. They look sick. But I think that is no surprise to anybody who knows what they are in for. The next talk is from Bahta and Corrine Ciani from the brains behind Club Chess. If you are not familiar with Club Chess, you can look at their Instagram. You can read their Crack Magazine article they did in advance of this festival, or you can come to the Club Chess Forest Edition tomorrow outside of the soundstage from 4:30 till 7 p.m. But enough of me. Please welcome to the stage Bahta and Corrine Ciani.
Oh, okay, the mic's are on.
Hey, everybody.
Hi. Okay.
So we're just gonna sit around fireside chat style, and read off our phones.
Yeah.
As Caitlin mentioned, I'm Bahta. Some of you know me as Alec. I'm also known as a musician by the name Quiet Luke. I'm the creator and co-founder of Club Chess, and I'm an artist and creative technologist living in New York City.
And I'm Corrine Ciani. I write and cover stories on individuals and subcultures. I also work on events and partnerships at Zora, and I'm the co-founder of Club Chess. I formerly produced Zora Zine, which was at FEST last year, if you were here. And we just want to thank FWB and everyone here for listening, having us today, and we're excited to speak to you about the metaphysics of party culture. So you may have seen photos or videos like this of people playing chess at a bar or at a club. The chances are, even if we didn't produce the images you saw, we had a hand in their production. Last year, in February of 2023, we started Club Chess, an experimental party series and conceptual social club. We play with and reference fashion, music, art, and fantasy to throw an anti-party rooted in our own personal obsessions and delusions. It started out as a weekly series on Wednesdays and quickly spread by word of mouth, becoming the worst-kept secret of downtown New York City. And frankly, the only good party to go to on a Wednesday. The party happened consecutively for 20 weeks at an infamous bar in Little Italy before we picked up the format and placed it in different venues, bars, and clubs around the city. Our party has been attended by people from all walks of life, from Hans Ulrich Obrist to Julian Casablancas. This summer, we had a residency at Le Bon, and we have taken our party internationally to both London and Paris. Our party format has been remixed, replicated, and referenced in multiple cities, including our own, and what started as a chess club became Club Chess.
This game is called The Immortal Game. It is one of the most famous chess games and one of my favorite games. It was played in 1851 by Adolf Anderssen and Lionel Kozerski. And it was a friendly pickup game that they played alongside a tournament. Like I said, it's been called the Immortal Game, and now the Immortal Game is a term used to describe any iconic game or a game that will describe someone's legacy. It's exemplary of romantic chess. There's an artful style to the way they're playing, almost like swashbuckling, an emphasis on showmanship, and they're not concerned with making the right moves. There are no chess engines. They just want to win in a cool way. And there's also no codified correct way to play yet. This is before computers, this is before engines. Yeah, and you can almost imagine what this was like to watch this in a bar or something like that with people around, chess players playing the wrong moves, etc., etc. And people ask how club chess came to be. The real answer is just wanted to play drunken chess in a bar. I have this obsession with something called cafe culture, which I've coined to mean hanging out at a bar or cafe, but not like this. Playing chess in a bar is nothing new. What's new is the context it exists in. I'm interested in this long thread of the avant-garde, the Cabaret Voltaire to the Dadaists and Parisian expatriates, to the Beat Generation, 60s counterculture, punks, post-punks, ravers, cypherpunks. I'm sure you're all familiar with this stuff. This is the lineage I wanted to explore and what I thought was missing from the downtown scene. A safe space that could be a happening and at its best a great party. A place where intoxication and intellect were simultaneously welcomed and where personal mythologies could take root and flourish into collective mythologies. Life today has lost something. Music, once associated with the spiritual, is now just vibes. Fashion has lost an edge of some sort. Today, the majority of chess games are played online on the 2D plane. And this is a metaphor that can be applied to pretty much everything. Speaking quite literally, people comment on the difference between IRL chess and playing online. They see the game in a different light. And this is because we keep the lights super low at the parties, and they're drunk. The game has progressed to a point where the symbols for these pieces have come to replace the physical objects they once represented, diluting their rich history. Television, fashion, and Hollywood are all showing a renewed interest in chess and the chess aesthetic. Machine learning has replaced human tact and skill, giving new players a religion to follow. And the best players sit in badly tailored suits under fluorescent lighting, playing a version of the game that's closer to a trendy esport than what used to be chess. We exist in a new context now. After a long decade of global homogenization and the Uberification of life, a global pandemic caused the simulation to crash, or at least to reveal itself, forcing us to search for new identities, new communities, and new ideals. Sometimes to go forward, you must go backward.
Even before COVID, we established a culture that only values productivity, porn, and perpetual motion. Now we're seeing a reaction to this. During the peak of COVID, life consisted of 3 places: home, work, and the internet. The internet quickly became the only viable place to hang out, collaborate, and exchange ideas. This is the first time since the inception of the internet that it was the only place for cultures to develop, barring a few exceptions. We've all had our collective lobotomy and are now smooth-brained. For people who were in their 20s, and especially those younger during the pandemic, their development was forever altered. Young people are reclaiming their innocence as things got quite serious and craving what life was like before the algorithm due to increased screen time. As you can see, they want to know what it's like to be a teenager in 2016, 2014. Trends on TikTok and other social platforms have been deployed and absorbed at hyperspeed. Balletcore, princesscore, cottagecore have all been synthesized into coquette, which is basically all of those trends fit for a modern girl, because let's face it, we don't live in a cottage and we don't live in a castle, and we're definitely not ballerinas. Shout out to the coquette section at Barnes & Noble. Fashion brands like Miu Miu and Sandy Lang have been capitalizing on this desire to come across as innocent and studious via ballet flats, ribbons, and miniskirts. Books and chessboards have become symbols for intelligence, having intelligence, wanting intelligence, and understanding high society. You may not be able to go to an Ivy League, but you can dress the part. You may not be a part of the 1%, but you understand quiet luxury. In addition to this desire to look and feel smart, there is another desire to be seen as feral and free, to have the option to be disgusting after years of vaccinations and mask mandates. The revival of indie sleaze and Tumblr aesthetics, a stage removed from their historical context, poses the movements as references to be mined and remixed. Online trends now manifest as whole personalities. Once a clean girl, now she's brat. 15 years ago, people were using online platforms to actually document subcultures and identities, and now they are extracted from the online and projected onto real life. This tweet, written by our friend Sean, who we worked with on our prototype Totem 1, an object-gated channel for media and exclusives powered by an NFC chip from IYK, we can talk to you about that later, contains some points that we've been thinking about for quite some time. With the oversaturation of social media and influencer culture, the rise of social clubs like dinner clubs, book clubs, run clubs, and yes, chess clubs, makes quite a bit of sense, especially now that fame is attainable by anyone. Yes. The internet may have lost some of its luster. People seem to be more interested in living a good life and surrounding themselves with great friends rather than being known. And at the heart of it, people just want to feel something again. There's a desire to sweat, to be sexy, a desire for romance and sensuality. And sensuality doesn't just mean sex. It's about feeling alive. It's nice to remember that we were not placed upon this earth to eat cosmopolitan slop for lunch and provide shareholder value.
So this is a game between two very, very high-level chess computers that we're just going to use as like smooth brain content while I go off on a tangent. Grind culture and life hacks are now integrated into our downtime and our scroll time. I think the trend of obsessive playing of online chess is a form of productive procrastination, along with TikTok becoming a place for research, news, and a platform for learning new skills. After COVID, there's a feeling of wanting to make up for lost time, to be the healthiest, the most productive, most culturally attuned you can be. In some cases. People are anticipating and coping with the AI revolution that we're in the midst of. The rise of AI in this particular moment is quite poetic because it's also becoming increasingly difficult to decipher whether real images are real and to rationalize if this question of authenticity has any relevance. Billions of images are created daily and captured by smartphones, created by text-to-image models. It's becoming harder to tell who or what is controlling this algorithm we're all surrendering to, if anything at all. AI and chess are tied together by fate. The game of chess has been a vehicle for the development and furthering of machine learning. In the face of automation and AGI, the playing of chess seems to be an Icarian task. People know they'll never be better than a chess engine, so why is everyone working so hard to get their ELO up? It's because the material awareness of human versus human, player versus player, survival of the fittest is very high. You don't need to be smarter than the AI, you just need to be smarter than the next guy. Physical spaces become very important right now, a place to organize corporeally and to party. True public forums, I would say. Because of the harsh realities of property ownership and city planning, in metropolitan areas especially, young people can't own anything or build anything from the ground up. And this is hindering culture, I would say. What ends up happening is spaces are reclaimed and repurposed, recontextualized. You all already know this already. But there's a lack of ownership among young people. I like to use the metaphor of a computer here, as hardware has been an interesting topic that's come up this year. A bar or venue becomes A bar, venue, or a club becomes hardware in this metaphor. Culture becomes software, and the party itself becomes an operating system. Since young people cannot build new spaces or even own old ones, we must create new operating systems.
The game of chess is a programming language and a mimetic device. For club chess, chess functions as a ready-made that changes the context of any space it finds itself in. It creates a sense of decorum and acts as an icebreaker that gives anyone the excuse to go up to whoever else interests them in the room for a game. It creates an equal playing field where a chess master and a beginner may accidentally end up on opposite sides of the board. In the 1970s, disco was a nonverbal form of communication at parties. You could dance to disco with a set of pre-programmed moves, just like chess openings. You could create a new disco record by repurposing old music, creating a feedback loop where outputs become inputs, DJs become rock stars, and the audience becomes performers. No one understood this format better than Studio 54. Studio became the most iconic party of all time by understanding exactly how people wanted to communicate with this new universal language. Studio 54 capitalized on the idea of disco, which began as an underground party format created by people of color and LGBTQ+, as a safe space for free expression and escapism that was necessary for survival. With the mainstream take on disco as an operating system for a cultural supercomputer, Studio placed celebrities in proximities with nobodies, making nobodies somebodies and celebrities more accessible and more interesting. Everyone there was participating in a performance, and what greatly contributed to this fact was that Studio was placed in an old theater with a mezzanine that allowed people to watch the party unfold in real time. Studio 54 encouraged performance, hedonism, fantasy, and an appreciation for taste and aesthetics. It solidified the party as an art form and introduced the idea of the party as an installation. It utilized the concept of the door, inventing modern party gatekeeping by curating who is or isn't supposed to be in the room and how easily they can enter, thus making the idea of getting in irresistible. A massive factor in party culture is curation of who is in the room, and it's still upheld by contemporary party institutions like Berghain and the Met Gala. Studio 54 was a reoccurring party that happened night after night for 3 years, I believe, before they got shut down. Not only did it break considerations for how to party, but when to party. It introduced the aspect of a surprise night out, what could happen rather than what should happen. This element of surprise in particular increases the number of character tropes that can be assumed by partygoers, inviting the notion of collective hallucination, causing many retellings of a story and perspectives of a happening that result in myth. While party photography was quite interesting decades ago, we actually find it uninteresting today. Maybe the art of the party photography is simply on the decline as new forms of image making become alluring. Or maybe the rooms these photos are being taken in just aren't that interesting. The best images come from the people living it. Party photography today actually has the power to disturb an organic moment, capturing forced content for the Instagram of the party photographer, rather than the documentation of a real moment. And we can't talk about party culture without mentioning drugs, so let's get into it.
So this section's gonna be a reach, like, just treat it as a metaphor, okay? Actually, let's go back for a sec. The drug culture of any time is a pure measurement of a society's collective subconscious, what they really want. And there's two overlapping metaphors that I find interesting to analyze this over the last 60 years. Nietzsche's concept of the Apollonian and the Dionysian, and Baudrillard's 4 phases of simulation, which at this point are sort of academic memes. The Apollonian and the Dionysian, I'm sure you all probably know this, but just humor me, left brain, right brain, thinking and feeling. The Apollonian represents reason, control, the individual, a search for structure, while the Dionysian deals with chaos, excess, collectivism, and returning to an animalistic state. Baudrillard proposed 4 stages that lead from reality to simulation. In the first phase, images and symbols accurately represent reality. In the second, they hide that reality has been corrupted. In the third, they mask the absence of any basic reality. And in the fourth, they're untethered from trying to be reality at all. In the 60s and 70s, the birth of the counterculture, LSD and marijuana, psilocybin, and other psychedelics become the leading drugs of choice. And these drugs represent a genuine desire to transcend reality into a dreamlike state that provides clarity and truth to the user. This decade represents the Apollonian and the first stage of simulation. Here, drug usage is of the sacramental order. Toward the late 70s and the 80s, the era of Studio 54, cocaine, quaaludes, and poppers become the leading drugs of choice. This era represents a shift towards the Dionysian. Drugs are used to reach a state of euphoria and collective ecstasy. Drug use is not used to escape reality or even to make sense of it, but to enhance physical sensations, to feel good inside one's body, not to transcend it. This trend continues on into the 80s and the 90s with the birth of rave culture. And this is the second level of Baudrillard's simulation. Here, drugs make an ugly world feel glamorous or exciting, even if this feeling fades after you leave the club. Toward the late aughts and the 2010s, the usage of drugs represents a numbness and maybe even a nothingness. Marijuana is used, but it doesn't have the same function of the 60s. Getting high seems to be a distraction from the void of existence. Perhaps this usage leans more towards the Dionysian in this metaphor, but a depressed version of it. If you can imagine Dionysus drinking lean instead of wine, listening to SoundCloud rap, alone in his room. Lean, Xanax, and prescription pills take over here, and they cover up this societal sadness. This is the third stage of simulation. Here, drugs are a way to cope with nothingness. Drugs for drugs' sake. Today, drugs are used to alter the mind in a tactful and optimized way. It's of the order of biohacking. Substances are used in succession to keep us in the right state depending on the context. In the morning, caffeine and nicotine. Now, in optimal supercharged doses that does not need to be inhaled. Adderall is taken for productivity by many, especially if there's a deadline coming up. More stimulants are administered as needed throughout the day. Ketamine, now medically accepted as a therapeutic and sometimes taken with supplements and nootropics, forms this hyper-real lucid dream, placing the user in a solipsistic para-reality to get through whatever kind of boring night they're having. And shrooms are microdosed in the form of chocolates and teas as an almost sober alternative to a drug. A natural drug that enhances wonder and energy without fully breaking one's sense of self or place. Even benders are doled out as needed, when the turn of life calls for a temporary insanity. We find ourselves lost in the Apollonian dream state, building illusions on top of illusions, layering substances interacting with other substances, interlinked in a feedback loop of altered states. And this collective hallucination somehow feels logical. This is Baudrillard's fourth stage of simulacra and simulation. Untethered from spiritual transcendence or pleasure, drugs allow the user to exist normally in an abnormal world.
Our online our online and in real life selves are now completely inseparable. Online culture has infused into our very real lives, existing as a para-reality that informs the real world. We are not human nor cyborg, but a secret third thing. We will never escape technology. There will only be more images thrown our way, and it's not something to avoid. Productivity and automation are not evil endeavors. But when algorithms, ideologies, and institutions optimize our productivity only to serve themselves, that's when we lose the plot. It's not about unplugging and separating the online from the offline. We are way too far from that. It's about using technology in an intentional way. It's about living your life outside of the algorithm when possible and surrendering to it when necessary. What separates us from machines that will uphold human lore and carry it forward is taste and identity, our unique ability to be completely biased and irrational. As engineering, image making, world building, and almost everything become a writing prompt, taste and human perspective become exponentially more important. The next wave of engineering will not happen by STEM kids alone. It will likely be a cross-disciplinary collaboration between people with taste, vision, language skills, historical references, technical skills, and AI models. Artists and creatives are what will make technology transcend tech. Tech needs people with vast knowledge of culture on the outside, otherwise it becomes an echo chamber. Soft skills are just as important as ever, and fantasy is just as important as logic. The idea of a club is symbolic of a bygone era that many seem to miss. One before algorithms and automation, where a sense of belonging and collective interests have a home. Hyperlocal works. The world is already in your pocket. Even if it's just meeting up with friends to play a game or two of chess, who knows what will happen. Thank you.
Just want to do one last shill for our event tomorrow, if you're around. Our friends AdWorld and Silk will be doing mixes alongside us. We'll be outside the soundstage. And yeah, I think that's it.
Thank you.
I don't know, do we open it up to questions?
I don't know what
or
to do.
do we just get off? I don't know what happens now. I think we just get off.
We vanished.
No one told us what to do. All right.
No one told us. Yay.